I went hiking and almost died. I found a forgotten bear trap the hard way. This happened a year ago when I went hiking alone in a state park. I'm writing it down because I still have nightmares about it, and my therapist says it might help to get it out. I don't know if that's true, but here it is. The ridge must have washed out sometime in the last couple of weeks. I stood at the edge of the trail where runoff had carved a gully through the packed earth, exposing tree roots twisted through the dirt. Murky water still pooled at the bottom. I could backtrack, add an hour, maybe two, or I could cut through the trees, parallel the trail for a few hundred yards, rejoin it past the damage. Honestly, it would be quicker just to go overland and cut out the switchback entirely. It was probably less than a mile. The forest here was old-growth Douglas fir, the canopy thick enough to turn noon into twilight. Sword ferns everywhere, thick clumps of salal between the trees. But it looked passable. I checked my phone out of habit. No signal, hadn't been one since the last fire road. I pushed into the trees. The ground gave under my boots, soft with rot and moss. Humid air pressed against my face, carrying the smell of decomposition and wet bark. My breathing was loud, the rustle of my pack against my shoulders. I picked my way between the ferns, trying to maintain a straight line. The washed-out section couldn't be more than a quarter mile. Easy enough. The trail disappeared behind me after 20 yards. I didn't see the trap until my boot was already through the leaf litter. The snap was mechanical, final. I didn't understand at first. Pressure clamped around my calf. The world tilted before I understood why, and I hit the ground. My pack twisted, straps digging into my shoulders. My vision went dark at the edges. It slowly cleared. I was on my back, staring up through the canopy. My chest worked like I'd been sprinting, short and shallow gasps that didn't seem to bring in enough air. I forced myself to look down. The trap was old, rust-bitted and half-buried. The jaws had closed just below my knee. Metal teeth punched clean through my pants leg. Fabric had torn where it had pressed into flesh. Blood was already soaking through the denim, spreading in a dark stain. I tried to pull my leg back. The trap didn't move. The pain doubled and a sound came out of me that I didn't recognize. My hands were shaking when I reached down to touch the metal. The jaws had sunk deep enough that I couldn't get my fingers between the steel and my leg. I pulled at the springs on either side, but they were fused with corrosion, immovable. I lay back, tried to think. Something inside my calf kept jumping, spasming under the skin. When I shifted my weight, the bones ground together and my vision widened out for a second. The blood spread further, running down into my boot now. I tilted my head back and screamed. My pack. I needed my pack. I twisted, ignoring the spike of pain, and dragged it off my shoulders. My fingers felt thick and clumsy as I unzipped the main compartment. First aid kit, water, food, headlamp, nothing that would pry open a bear trap. My phone was in the side pocket. No signal when I pulled it up. The bleeding hadn't stopped. My sock was soaked through, boot filling. Warmth spread down to my toes. I didn't know how much blood I could lose. Couldn't remember if I'd ever known. Wait for rescue. Stay put. Conserve energy. Hope someone noticed I was overdue. Except no one knew I'd left the trail. And the trail itself saw maybe 3 hikers a week this time of year. I'd signed the register at the trailhead yesterday morning. If someone found my car in a few days, they'd start a search, but they'd look along the marked route first. It could be a week before anyone pushed into this section of forest. I had to get out of the trap. I pulled my hiking pole from the side of my pack. Then the paracord from the bear bag setup, 30 feet of it, and a carabiner. I looped the paracord through the carabiner and clipped it to the trap's spring mechanism on the right side, fed the other end through and around the hiking pole. I'd need to pry both springs at once to release the jaws, but if I could get one side open even partially, create some give, maybe the other would follow. I braced the pole against a nearby root and pulled. The cord went taut. The spring didn't move. I repositioned, planted my good leg for leverage, and pulled harder. My palms burned where the cord dug in. The pole bowed slightly. The spring gave a fraction of an inch, then held. Not enough. I unwound the cord and tried a different configuration. More wraps around the pole for mechanical advantage. This time, when I pulled, the spring shifted. A quarter inch. Ha! The jaws loosened. The teeth dragged through muscle as they moved. Tissue tore. The serrated edge caught on something deep inside my leg and pulled. The pain shot up into my hip, down to my ankle. My stomach lurched. I kept pulling. The spring gave another inch. The pressure on my leg decreased slightly. The teeth had punched through skin and fat, into the meat underneath. Dark blood welled up. I blacked out. When I came to, I was on my side in the leaves. The pole had fallen. The spring had snapped back into place. My leg was still in the trap. I lay there for a while. Could have been 30 seconds. Could have been 5 minutes. Then I sat up and started again. This time I didn't stop when the pain spiked. I pulled until my arms shook, until the cord bit deep grooves into my palms. The spring moved. The other side shifted in response, corroded metal shrieking. The jaws opened. I dragged my leg out. Flesh came with it. Strips of tissue caught on the teeth, stretching and tearing as my calf pulled free. I saw bone, white fragments among the red. Part of my pant leg stayed behind, fabric embedded in the mechanism. The trap snapped shut again, empty. The wound ran in a complete circle, punctures and lacerations where each tooth had sunk in. The deepest points were on either side, front and back, where the jaws had closed. Dark meat, shredded. Deeper than that, past the subcutaneous fat, the pale gleam of my tibia. Blood poured out. I fumbled for the first aid kit. 3 tries to get the zipper open. Gauze pads, medical tape, a single ace bandage that would do exactly nothing. I packed the gauze against the wounds, wrapping the entire calf. Blood soaked through immediately. I added more, kept wrapping, used the tape to hold it in place. Then the ace bandage over that, pulled tight enough that my foot started to tingle. Not tight enough. Still bleeding through. I pulled my belt off and cinched it around my thigh, above the knee, yanked it until the leather creaked. The bleeding slowed. My boot was full of blood. It sloshed when I moved my ankle. I needed a splint, something to keep the leg immobile. I looked around, found a fallen branch about the right length, and used the remaining paracord to lash it against my calf. The pressure made me gag, but I kept tying knots until it held firm. Done. Sweating despite the cold, my shirt stuck to my back. I looked at the surrounding forest, tried to orient myself. I'd been heading roughly northwest when I'd left the trail, meaning the trail should be northeast. But everything looked the same. Ferns and moss and Douglas fir trunks disappearing into shadow. No landmarks, no clear sight lines. My mind swam with pain. Which way? Which way? I picked a direction and started crawling. I couldn't put weight on the leg. Even the thought of trying made my vision blur. So I moved on my stomach, using my forearms to drag myself forward. My good leg kicked for purchase, boot sliding through the leaf litter. My injured leg caught on everything. Roots, exposed rocks. The splint would shift, and the bones inside would grind together, and I'd have to stop. Forehead pressed into the dirt, my pack dragged behind me, still clipped to my chest strap. Dead weight. But it had my water, my headlamp. I couldn't leave it. The forest floor was a mess of obstacles. Fallen logs I had to navigate around, dense patches of sal that forced detours. My jacket snagged on thorns. My hands sank into soft rot that released the smell of decay. I'd gone maybe 50 yards when the rain started, just a mist at first, barely more than heavy air. Then it thickened, drops pattering on the canopy overhead, filtering down through the needles. Minutes later, my jacket was soaked. Water ran down my neck, into my collar. The ground went soft under me, then soupy. I kept moving. Northeast. I was sure it was northeast. There was a slight upward slope, and I followed it, reasoning that the trail followed the ridge line. Uphill meant closer. Except after another 100 yards, the slope plateaued, and I found myself in a small clearing where a tree had come down years ago. The trunk was massive, half-rotted, covered in moss and shelf fungus. Beyond it, the forest continued, identical in every direction. I stopped, tried to think through the cold and the pain. Had I been going uphill or downhill? The slope had felt upward, but now I wasn't sure, and the rain made everything slick, disorienting. Distances stretched. Somewhere to my left, a branch cracked. I turned my head but saw nothing, just the vertical lines of tree trunks fading into gray. Another crack, closer this time, then a rustle of undergrowth. Deer, probably, or elk. The forest wasn't empty. I'd just been too loud earlier to notice. Now that I'd stopped, now that I was quiet, the sounds filtered back in, except they didn't sound like animals moving. I held my breath and listened. Something that might have been a voice, far off. I almost called back before I caught myself. Nothing out here but trees. I reached back and checked the tourniquet. Still tight. The gauze underneath was soaked, but the bleeding had slowed to a seep. I started moving again. The mud helped in some ways. It was slick enough that my body slid easier, my jacket gliding over the surface. But it also meant less traction for my good leg. I'd push off, and my boot would spin out, sending me sliding sideways into a fern or a half-buried stone. My arms burned. Each pull forward took more effort than the last, shoulders wrenching. The rain picked up. It pooled in the small of my back, ran down my sides. My hands were numb, fingers barely able to grip. I focused on small distances. That root 5 feet ahead, the gap between those two trees. One goal at a time. Somewhere above, the canopy thinned and I caught a glimpse of sky. Solid gray. No sun to navigate by. The light was diffuse, directionless. I checked my phone. 2:18 p.m. Less than 2 hours of crawling, and I'd covered maybe a quarter mile. At this rate, I'd still be in the forest when night came. The sharp pain in my leg had settled into a deep throb that never let up. I stopped to drink water. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the bottle. Half of it spilled down my chin. I forced myself to swallow 3 long pulls, then capped it and kept going. The underbrush thickened. Sight lines shortened. I was crawling through sword ferns now, the fronds slapping against my face, and I had to push them aside to see more than a few feet ahead. A root caught my splint and twisted it sideways. The bone shifted. I felt it move, felt the broken ends grate against each other, and I screamed into the mud. Air came back. I'd veered off course, heading downhill now, the ground sloping away. Wrong direction. I angled right, trying to correct, but the slope steepened and I started to slide. My fingers clawed at the ground, found nothing. I picked up speed, jacket slick with mud, and then the ground disappeared and I was falling. The drop was only 6 feet, but I hit hard. Shoulder first, then my hip, and finally my injured leg slammed into the rocks at the bottom of the ravine. Everything went white. I was curled on my side, both hands clutching my thigh. I couldn't breathe, couldn't make my lungs work. My mouth opened and closed, but nothing came in. Then my diaphragm released, and I sucked in air, huge gasping pulls that burned my throat. I lay there. The ravine was narrow, maybe 10 feet across, choked with fallen branches and standing water. The walls were steep, slick clay embedded with stones. I'd slid down the eastern side. Above me the edge looked impossibly far away. My leg was screaming. Fresh, bright pain. Something had gotten worse. I didn't want to look, but I made myself. The splint had broken. The branch had snapped in the middle, the two halves held together only by the paracord wrapping. My calf bulged between them, swollen and dark. The gauze was completely soaked through, more red than white. I closed my eyes. The rain continued. I could hear it hitting the water pooled around me, a soft patter that would have been pleasant under different circumstances. Cold seeped through my jacket, through my shirt, into my skin. I thought about staying here just for a minute, long enough to rest. I could stay here, let the moss cover me. They'd find bones eventually, maybe the belt buckle. I opened my eyes through the rain and the gray light, something upstream, a gap in the trees. The ravine curved and widened, and beyond that curve the undergrowth thinned. I knew that gap. I'd seen it from the trail 2 days ago, a clearing where loggers had worked decades back. Stumps still visible among the new growth. The trail ran along the western edge of that clearing. I started crawling again. The ravine bottom was the worst terrain yet. Standing water hid the depth of the mud beneath. Twice my arm sank to the elbow and I had to wrench it free, the suction pulling at me. Branches jabbed into my stomach, my ribs. My broken leg dragged behind me, the splint catching on every obstacle. I moved in increments, 6 inches, a foot, rest, another foot. My breathing had gone shallow. I couldn't seem to get enough air and my heart hammered against my sternum. The gap in the trees didn't get closer. I crawled for what felt like an hour and it stayed the same distance away, fixed and unreachable. That wasn't possible. I was moving. I stopped and put my forehead against the ground. The mud was cold. It smelled like iron and rot. When I looked up again, the gap had shifted. Closer now, maybe 50 yards. I kept going. The ravine widened. The walls lowered. I passed a stump, the wood soft and black with decay, and recognized it. I'd seen this stump. I was sure of it. Then I was in the clearing. The canopy opened overhead. Rain fell straight down, no longer filtered through needles and branches. The light was gray and flat. The far tree line was maybe 200 yards across open ground, and there, barely visible through the rain, a wooden post. Trail marker. My arms gave out. I lay in the mud with my face turned sideways, staring at the post. Weathered wood with a faded white blaze. I started crawling again. The clearing was less overgrown than the forest, but the ground was uneven, full of hidden depressions where my weight would suddenly drop and my leg would twist. Each time it happened, the pain spiked and my vision tunneled. I was shaking now. Full body tremors I couldn't control. My teeth chattered. I was going to die 50 yards from the trail. The thought made me laugh. A wet, ragged sound that turned into coughing. I crawled. The trail marker resolved as I got closer. 4 feet tall, the white blaze chipped and weathered but unmistakable. Beyond it was the trail itself, a thin line of packed earth cutting through the undergrowth. My arms were beyond burning now. They felt distant and mechanical. My good leg had stopped responding properly. When I tried to push off, it just twitched. Something cracked in the tree line to my right. I turned my head. A Douglas fir swayed, branches moving. But there was no wind. The rain fell straight down. I watched the tree for a long time, waiting for it to move again. It didn't. Finally, my hand touched the post. Rough wood under my palm, solid and real. I pulled myself alongside it and onto the trail. The ground was harder here, packed dirt instead of mud. I lay on my back and stared up at the sky. The rain hit my face, ran into my eyes. The light was fading, gray shifting toward dark. In another hour I wouldn't be able to see. The trailhead was north. 2 miles, maybe 3. I'd made better time on the way in, but I'd been walking then and whole. I couldn't crawl 2 miles. I knew that with absolute certainty. My body had nothing left, but the trail meant people. Not today, probably not tomorrow, but eventually, someone would come through. They'd find me if I lasted that long. I rolled onto my stomach and kept moving. The trail made it easier. No roots to navigate around, no hidden drops, just a clear path forward. My vision kept blurring, edges going dark. I'd blink and find myself 10 feet further along with no memory of covering the distance. My injured leg had gone numb below the knee. I couldn't tell if that was good or bad. Maybe I'd left the tourniquet too tight. Maybe the nerves were just gone. I didn't have the energy to check. The shaking had gotten worse. My jaw ached from clenching against the chatter. Somewhere ahead, I heard an engine. A truck, maybe, or a car with a bad muffler. The trailhead had a small parking area, gravel lot, room for 5 or 6 vehicles. I'd left my car there yesterday morning. If I could make it to the lot, even if no one was there, I could get inside the car, turn on the heat, call for help. Once I had signal, the engine sound faded. I crawled faster, arms pulling, good leg kicking. The trail curved, and I followed it, staying in the center where the ground was most even. My hands were torn up, palms shredded and bleeding from the paracord earlier, from rocks and roots and 7 hours of dragging myself across the forest floor. They didn't hurt. Nothing hurt except my leg. The rain stopped. I didn't notice at first. Then I realized my face was dry, the patter of drops on my jacket gone. I looked up. The clouds were still there, but the rain had passed. The temperature dropped further. I needed to stop shaking, needed to conserve energy, but my body wouldn't listen. The tremors ran through me in waves, muscles firing without my input. The trail dipped into a small depression, then rose. At the top of the rise, light shone through the trees. Not daylight, yellow and artificial, streetlight. Light ahead. The solar lamp at the trailhead, yellow against the trees. The last 100 yards took forever. The trail rose gradually, and my arms barely had the strength to pull me uphill. I'd move a few feet, stop, wait for my vision to clear, then move again. The light got brighter. I could make out individual trees now, the edge of the parking lot, the square shape of the information kiosk. The parking lot was empty. No cars, just gravel and the wooden kiosk and the solar lamp throwing its yellow circle across the ground. My car was gone. I stared at the empty space where I thought I'd left it. Maybe someone had dropped me off, or maybe I'd parked at a different trailhead and gotten confused. I realized I was going into shock. I pulled myself past the trailhead sign, onto the gravel. Stones dug into my elbows. My leg dragged behind me, the broken splint scraping. The lamp hummed above me. I could hear it clearly now that I was out of the forest. A steady electrical buzz. Beyond the parking lot was the access road, single lane, poorly maintained. It connected to the main highway about 3 miles north. During the day there'd be traffic, logging trucks, the occasional tourist, but it was past 7 now, full dark within the hour. I crawled to the edge of the road and stopped, asphalt under my hands, smooth and flat. I pressed my cheek against it and closed my eyes. I didn't pass out. I stayed conscious, aware of the cold and the pain and the way my pulse felt thin and distant. But I couldn't move. My arms were done. My good leg wouldn't respond. I lay there and listened. The forest behind me was quiet. No wind, no animal sounds. Just that electric hum from the lamp and my own breathing. Time passed. I wasn't sure how much. Then I heard something new, faint at first, a low rumble from the north. I opened my eyes. Headlights appeared around the curve, maybe half a mile up the road, 2 white beams cutting through the dusk. The engine sound grew louder. I tried to lift my arm, managed to get it a few inches off the ground before it fell back. The vehicle was closer now, 1/4 mile. It was a truck, high chassis, moving slow on the rough road. I opened my mouth. My throat was raw and tight. The sound that came out was barely more than a rasp. The truck kept coming. I tried again, louder this time. A hoarse shout that tore at my vocal cords. The headlights swept across me, catching me sprawled half on the asphalt, mud-covered jacket, destroyed leg dragging behind. The truck's brakes squealed. It stopped 20 feet away, engine idling. The driver's door opened and someone got out. I couldn't see details, just a silhouette against the headlights, footsteps on gravel, running, then a voice. Jesus Christ. I tried to answer, but nothing came out. Hands on my shoulder, my arm. The person kept talking. Something about an ambulance, about staying awake. I heard the beep of a phone, numbers being pressed. Yeah, I need emergency services. I'm on Forest Road 38, just past the trailhead. I've got a guy here. He's in bad shape. Looks like his leg is Yeah, he's conscious. Barely. The voice moved away, still talking. I heard the truck door open, the rustle of fabric. Then the person was back, draping something over me. A blanket. They're coming, the voice said. 10 minutes. Maybe 15. You hang on. I managed a nod. The smallest movement. The person stayed next to me. I could hear them breathing. Beyond the parking lot, the forest was dark, but the blanket was warm and I was still alive. I spent 8 days in the hospital. They had to do 3 surgeries to clean out the wound and repair what they could. The tibia had a hairline fracture. Muscle damage was extensive. Nerve damage worse. I still walk with a limp. My calf is mostly scar tissue now, numb in places, hypersensitive in others. I can't run anymore. The rangers went back and found the trap. It was ancient, probably from the 30s or 40s, when people still trapped in that area. Illegal now, and it should have been cleared decades ago, but it wasn't. Just sitting there under the leaves, waiting. They checked my car situation. Turns out I had parked at the trailhead. A ranger had ticketed it for an expired Discover Pass and had it towed. I laughed when they told me. Couldn't help it. I'd been meaning to get it renewed for over a year and kept forgetting. The guy who found me was a logger heading home after a late shift. Right place, right time. The doctors said if I'd been out there another hour, I probably would have bled out or gone into complete shock. Sometimes I still dream about crawling. I wake up, and my arms are moving, pulling at the sheets, and for a second I'm back in that forest with the rain coming down and no idea which direction I'm going.